So hi there, guys.
All right. Hey, everybody who's watching us today, who's found the time and the willing to join us for the second session of Game Drive AMA. It's a pleasure to see all of you, to see the speakers.
It's actually really a good thing to, I don't know, not really brand it, by position it a little bit differently, because in fact, yeah, it's an MA session, but actually it's kind of like an educational thing, because actually for the second time, we're sharing lots of really cool insights, the ones that are really important for the indie developers and for small teams and for the ones who are really far away from the marketing. Because actually, I was really surprised for the first time that we discussed a lot of really cool stuff. And today, I've seen the agenda, and I guess I'm really interested and really surprised that we're going to be sharing lots of so cool insights.
All right, so that has been Timur and his introduction for the second AMA session. I guess we don't need any more intro. But yeah, no, we still need an intro. And I also seen that we have Todd Howard, at least in Zoom. So hey, Todd, a pleasure to see you here. Yeah, okay. You've got a minute or so, guys, before we make a start. So you can go and grab some coffee or tea or whatever, maybe some water. So today's session is gonna take an hour and a half. Yeah, so you don't miss anything. You still have some time to.
So we got people gathering. So the thing is, today's session is being streamed for the second time on our channel. It's a channel of the podcast named Zavtracast. It's one of the most popular gaming podcasts in Russia, and we always try to share lots of different insights about the gaming and marketing and development and things like that. But mostly it's like top gaming. But the thing is, I'm really glad to see everyone here. Anton, hi there. And also Maxim is also here. He's also the host of Zavtracast. And I guess it's going to be up to Anton to introduce lots of different cool speakers that we have today here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We're gonna get to that a little bit later. All right.
I believe note small PSA to our audience on our channel. Don't be afraid to ask any questions, even if you don't know English. Ask away in Russian. We will translate them and we will ask the speakers. So there's no problem with the language of the questions.
Yep.
Yep, that's true. All right, I believe we can start, right, guys?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, totally. We still have a lot to cover today. So, okay, let's get it on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Drive AMA session number 2. Last month, we had a couple of AMA sessions where we introduced the Game Drive campaign, which is an initiative by My Games and Google aimed to support mobile game developers from MR countries. And I sincerely hope that you've watched that already. And today, we welcome you to our second educational session, as has been mentioned earlier, in a series of events open to everyone, really, irrespective of the team size, of the experience level, or whatever, who would like to learn more about mobile game development and publishing. My name, as always, is Anton Gorodetsky, and I'm the head of Player One Media Project here at My Games, and I will be your host for today. In addition, today's AMA is supported by our invited guests from not one, but 2 media channels. And the first partner, as has been again mentioned, is Zavtracast Media. So please welcome Maxim and Timur. Hey, guys.
Hi there.
Hi.
So they are streaming today on their YouTube channel. We, of course, welcome them and their listeners and invite them to join the discussion in the comments section on the Zavtracast YouTube live stream chat. We are reviewing the comments, and we will definitely answer all your questions. So you guys can, again, make some short intro, and then I will go on.
So, okay, I guess the thing is we're here today to cover some really good educational topics about the gaming marketing, prototyping, and all of that stuff. Anton is going to be introducing them later. But we're really glad to see lots of people who are really into the game dev, into gaming marketing, into performance marketing, and all of this stuff. And we really hope that this AMA session is going to be really helpful for you. Either you are from a small team or from a small indie team or from a small agency who's going to be working with some gaming development studios, or Ariane. We are really welcoming Ariane here because we're going to be sharing lots of really cool insights today.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. But apart from Zavtracast, which are awesome, we also have our new partner here, 80 Level, a professional media outlet about game development, who are also streaming us today on their YouTube channel. Hey guys, and thank you for supporting us today. All right, before we start, let's go through some technical details about the session. All our AMA sessions will be in English, and have been and will be. And however, we'll also have a Russian translation, so feel free to choose the language stream by clicking on the globe bottom button of your Zoom interface panel. If you have seen our previous sessions, I believe you already know how that's done. Our speaker sessions will take approximately 40 minutes, and then we'll have a 40-minute Q&A session with you guys. So please prepare your questions and do not hesitate to ask them by using the Q&A chat option in the bottom panel of the Zoom call interface. And those guys who watch us on Zavtracast or 80 Level YouTube channels, feel free, again, to ask your questions right on the YouTube live stream chats. We will monitor them and answer during the session today. Now, a couple of words about what is Game Drive. For those of you who do not know what Game Drive actually is, let me briefly explain the idea of the campaign. So, Game Drive is a joint initiative, which is important, created together by My Games and Google. And this is a business acceleration campaign for mobile game developers, which is designed to help developers from EMEA countries, which is Europe, Middle East, and Africa, in the development, publishing, promotion, and scaling of their games. What do we offer to developers? First, individual project evaluation by both My Games and Google experts. Second, detailed feedback about the project and analysis of opportunities growth. Number 3, marketing, publishing, and project scaling expert advices. Number 4, business potential review. And number 5, individual consultations with each studio. In addition, in the second season, My Games and Google offer the following advantages to developers. First, unique opportunity for internal benchmarking tests by Google and My Games. Second, Google advertising credits for UA testing. And 3, opportunity to receive investments from My Games with an investment pool of, pay attention, up to $30 million. All right. So if you're interested in participating in the campaign, please apply on the website, mgvc.com/gamedrive. And now for the major part. Today we'll talk about such topics as fast product validation and efficient prototyping, how to predict product and genre risks, and finally, how to choose and prove your setting and mechanic concept. We have several quite interesting speakers today, but please remember that we're also here to talk to you guys. So please do not hesitate to bring your questions and send them to Q&A chat here or just in YouTube chat, whatever you prefer. Finally, let me welcome our speakers in today's session from My Games, Venture Capital, and Google, of course. All right, the first one is Nikita Matsokin, who is an executive producer at MGVC. Hi, Nikita.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
All right. The second one is Christina Narask, who is a head of growth consulting EMEA at Google Play. Hi, Christina.
Hello, everyone, and really excited to be here and speak to you soon.
All right, we're excited as well. And the last but not the least, Vlad Fadichev, who is a brand manager at MGVC. Vlad, Hey there.
Yeah, hey guys, nice to meet you.
Okay, a pleasure to see all of you here, and we can finally start the first presentation. So Nikita, please start over.
I hope it will be.
Sure. Let's get it started. Yeah, but I believe that the first section is yours. So passing the mic to you.
Yeah, let me get it. So, hey guys, once again, I will drive you through the marketing research. Why should we do it and how to do it correctly? We can move to the next slide already. It's about the agenda of our meeting. And we will discuss like what are the first steps, try to show some more interesting ideas of it. Let's move next. Yeah, okay. So I will also show you some tools which are good to use, at least from my perspective, SWOT analysis. We also got this topic, it's about your product. And the main questions like, are these a lot of users in the genre and a lot of money as well? And can we earn them all? So let's try to answer it. Let's move to the next slide. So yeah, first of all, you need to know what kind of game, what kind of genre you want to do. And let's say it's shooters as one example, but what exactly you want to make? There are various of them like PvE, PvP games, tactical shooters, battle royale, team versus team, and so on. And that's a question about the subgenre. Defining this, we can move to the next point to choose someone with whom you will compare yourself. And let's say you want to do a battle royale, so you will compete with such guys like PlayerUnknown, Battleground, Garena Free Fire, and other strong titles. But that's not all. As you choose a battle royale, these subgenre games will be the strongest opponents of yours. And yet it's just one part of a big auditory, which are the shooting games, since potential players have an interest not only in a current setting or a subgenre, but they also are fans of shoot and kill. Then you will fight for their attention with all other games. Yeah, the small difference here is that within the subgenre, you need to get the attention from the core audience, like the people who will most likely enjoy your game. And if we are talking about the genre itself, like shooters, then it's more about the whole auditory. So guys, don't skip them. Let's move next. Yeah. So first of all, in order to compare correctly, you need to choose the right comparison criteria. We must consider metrics under the same conditions. Choose the same geo, United States as an example, because it's always the main country for mostly all of the projects. We got tier 1, tier 3 countries, and this just from different population, solvency, even from a number of strong devices like mobile phones, tablets, iPhones, and so on. So it's important not to confuse metrics from one game in Thailand, for example, and the metrics of another in the USA. And talking about the second point, some soft launch, global launch. So some games are old and some are new, and there also can be a huge gap between a newcomer and a veteran game, which is already full of content and user base. So if your game is in a soft launch phase and you just do your first steps in monetization updates, and then you need to get the same pace of the competitors to see how was the launch made and what kind of metrics they had. Then you will have a more complete picture of the reality. Otherwise, you might just think that your game is not good enough or even drop a project. Also, it may have a lot of potential in the future. And there are even more details, as you can see, more information you must keep in mind, like patterns, seasonality, market trends. For example, Cyberpunk came out and everyone got overhyped with the setting. And also percent of the paid traffic and organic share, because some games live only on organic with no user acquisition at all, and they just feel really nice. Let's move next to the next slide. So who are the leaders? And on this small example, there are a top 5 shooting games for the last 30 days. Garena Free Fire is our winner, who gains like almost half of all the money, all the revenue. Next, we got Call of Duty and PUBG. As you identify the leaders, you already know who you should surpass and what kind of money, how much money you should earn. So as you can see, quite a lot. So with that goal, you realize will it be difficult to take the first, second, or the third place in genre? And do you have enough strength and wisdom to do it? And yeah, every time I will speak about like a leaders top 5 games, and that's just because we need to strive to the best, and who if not us will beat everyone. Yeah, as well with that, we should check for the rest of the world how they are doing. Are they feeling okay? Like we are talking about the middle league and the other games, or all money generated by a top 5 or top 1 even game, and the rest are just existing. So speaking of that, let me show you some example, and we are moving to the next slide. Yeah, the first one. We got a general leader, even two, I would say, like because they are pretty similar. Revenue disturbed by steps between the project. So even every participant can pretend to get their piece of the auditory. On the right, we have a title which it looks like a skyscraper in a village, and all other games are not even close to the first place. This game just have the wall cake. There might be something special about this project, and only these guys from Coin Master understand how the genre works. But as Kanye West said on the Grammy ceremony, I guess we never know. And yeah, guys, why it's important? Because if you are looking for a niche and you analyze on a high top level, like a social casino genre got a lot of money, I want to do a social casino too, you can get trapped because the world is spinning around only one title. Yet I'm not saying you should not try it, by the way. So let's go next. Yeah, you can see the tablets with the titles, and criteria is a Sky-Fi setting, and these are the games who earn more than 1 million by a month. Mostly all of the games has a strong intellectual properties like Marvel, Star Trek, Dragon Ball, as you can see. And from that we can conclude that this setting doesn't have like a big audience, and most likely all of the players are driven in with familiar heroes, their stories, so on. And it's kind of a genre risk for you. Let's move next. And we will talk about plateau. So every game has its own peak, as you can see these mountains in the slide. But after a certain period of time, user base is decreasing because you like drove the majority of the players to game. You come to a plateau. You can see like it's a flat line. It's pretty flat from month to month with no significant changes. It's both true for the downloads, which we got in this very example, and for the revenue as well. By analyzing that, you might find some patterns of the genre, for example, a big peak in the beginning and a stagnation after that. Or let's say some games, some genres generate all their money within only 1 month and almost nothing after that. Hyper casual games. Let's move to the next slide. I know you got this question in mind, but yeah, that's not a modern art. This is a market share slide which shows us what happened then a new title joined the race. And this still the same games like Free Fire, PUBG, and the COD. While you're choosing a niche, you need to understand the competition. And the more competitors, especially the strong one, as you can see, the better your game should be to surpass them all. Or another newcomer just come and steal all your users. Moving next. Yeah, guys, it's a short slide. Here's a list of game intelligence services, which I recommend, as I promised. I bet there is no need in introduction. You probably know them all. Some of them are not free, but totally worth it. So please check them. Mark as something you will need in the future. They got a demo. Use it, try it, be happy with that. Let's move on. By the end of the analysis, you should have something like a document, a result that answer all your basic questions. Are there enough money and the audience as well in for your game? With that, you should make a plan with different variations, like to be the best, to be the top 5 game. We got no plan C because defeat is never an option. Yet remember, like the market is like the weather. Today it's sunny and tomorrow it starts raining. So it's a new title come next morning and it will be a game changer. So react and adapt quickly on market changes. And yeah, now let's go for the next slide. And now we will talk a little about not someone, but your own game. We know the market, so now we need to understand what points of growth we have. It's like a strong and weak points. And this is an example of our game Tactical. Some of you might remember presentation of it from the last MA session. And while you are reading the bullet points, let me just mark something important about this slide. It's on the top right corner. Let me explain it. So strength and weakness are something that inside your project. These are things that you can change by your own hands, making new updates, fixing bugs, producing new content, and finding an outstanding art style. And from the other hand, opportunities and threats. These are something that influence you for your game from the outside. And this is the marketing response to your project. Like high CPM rates, there is nothing you can do about it because like an overcrowded genre. Your game is a taboo in some countries because the military content and that's just their laws. And talking about the opportunities, you see one, use it. Go for an esport and get additional attention. Make your game viral because influencers love your game, enjoy playing it and streaming it, and etc. SWOT is it's a must-have for all kind of projects, especially for a new one. Don't skip this phase, because if you know your enemy but don't know yourself, it's very unlikely to succeed. Moving next, how to verify the results. So for this task, we usually use split matrix tests. It's a tool which generates a store page identical to a Google Play or an App Store, but this is just a web landing page. You just upload all the needed information like icon, game name, and screenshots. So let's briefly talk about pros and cons. I think they are pretty simple. Some of them are even obvious. Yeah. To compare with development, this is a very cheap and fast solution. So even without a build, you can get the needed results to test your setting, art style, even try to show a gameplay of yours with the videos, for example. But yeah, as always, there's a small bet in a big good. You don't always get the results from the the first try. You can get a lot of them. Marketing metrics such as CPM, cost per install, will be different from what you will see, and still, that's a good tool to get the results fast. And let's move to the next slide with a tactical example. Here we got 3 different settings. We tested a Cyberpunk, so you guys can even understand the time period when we had this test. Number 2 is a Dieselpunk, which is close but not quite, and the zombies, the third one. So you can see the different numbers, and as well as the leader, and that's how we choose our new in-game mode with only a small marketing investment without any development. Moving next, the last slide of mine, and yeah, let me just remind you guys the key points about the presentation. Like every good game starts with a planning and analyzing. It's always good to have some numbers before you start. Check both like the audience and the money in your genre. If you're going for a chess game, you will probably get like a lot of users, but not the money. Always keep an eye on your competitors. Prepare your own game, know your risks, point of growth, and the more tests, the better. So you will probably save more money for your future development. That's all from my side. And yeah, I'm ready to pass the mic back to Nikita, I believe.
Awesome. Thanks, Vlad. All right. Yeah, moving on to the next section. Just a brief intro about myself before we start. My name is Nikita. I'm executive producer here at My Games Venture Capital. My role is about full cycle deal making and also helping game companies that we've joined to grow their business. So yeah, today I'll be talking about how to get started with the new product. We'll share some approaches, systems, and yeah, also beyond this, share a success case of ours. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is a brief slide with the agenda. So yeah, well, the key question that I'll be answering today, or helping to answer, is how teams can actually come up with a concept of really groundbreaking game with hit potential and plan their next steps to deliver it to the market. So next slide, please. When we think about the potential of a new game idea, we consider three key pillars. First, designing a great game experience. Fun, exciting, core gameplay, which is replayable, which is of high tension, which is of great excitement. It's all about design. And also answering the question for whom actually we're designing the game. The second pillar is about production. And all things about the product as a business and system that generates money and keeps players engaged for months. And of course, keeping the lights on in your office or in your studio on top of this. And third is marketing. It's all things market size, market value, target audience, key regions for distribution, and how the game will stand out from the competition, which is super important because mobile free-to-play market is very competitive. So when you're thinking about new game ideas, apply these pillars and consider the idea from all these three angles: design, production, and marketing. And most likely it will help you come up with a nice scoring or understanding. Does this initial idea of a game make sense or not really? Next slide, please. So now let's dive into various options on how teams can find new opportunities of high potential in the market. So on this slide, you can see four approaches, four segments on the slide. They're ranged from less riskier to high riskier. However, as you definitely know, the more risk, the higher is the reward, given that mobile free-to-play game space is a hit-driven industry. So eventually, you might even come up with the blue ocean opportunity if you chase creation of a new product with a really high-risk approach. So let's go one by one from the left side of the slide to the right one. The first approach is marketing-based. It's about finding games that can be delivered to the market, to the audience more efficiently. As an example, let's take Hero Collection genre, which is a solid, nicely generating revenue genre that is around for a while in Asian region, but it has struggled to get into Western markets. And EA, with its title Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, has added IP to the well-proven product and actually unlocked the Western audience for the genre and generated lots of revenues. The second pillar is about production approach. It's about finding products that can be improved from the standpoint of features, from the standpoint of monetization. An example here is Game of War by Machine Zone. So Game of War is definitely a new generation of Travian games, which have been for a while on the market. But major addition of Game of War is really heavy monetization that actually brought to disrupting the genre overall. The third approach is design one. It's about creating new gameplay from various elements that make sense for the target audience and create new experience overall for the target audience you aim at. So as an example, let's take Comparison Puzzles by Small Giant. It's a puzzle match 3 core gameplay plus hero collection meta. And of course, I know it's not a pioneer in this kind of gameplay, but it really has dominated the market. And yeah, I believe the example that lots of you know already. The fourth approach is creative one. It's the approach of the highest risk. It's about starting from scratch completely and creating unique experience for the target audience, given audience drivers and emotions that you're trying to create within a new game, within a new gaming experience for your audience. And as an example, I believe Minecraft is a nice one. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So when you're finalizing your idea, it's time to create a comprehensive concept that will be a starting point for production. But first, think about your team and its strengths. It's really important to build something new on previous experience of your team, because if you're aim at something completely new, the risks are getting higher and higher rapidly. So well thought out concept should cover the same pillars that I've mentioned at the very beginning: design, production, and marketing standpoints. So when you're elaborating on the concepts internally, be sure you're ready to answer the questions, and you actually answer the questions and the topics that are presented here on the slide about the product that you're about to create. Moving on to the next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, it's time to plan high-level roadmap for the product once you've chosen the concept. And this roadmap will definitely shed some light on the next year or two of your team's lifetime. So on this slide, you can see an example of the roadmap of a mobile free-to-play game production. And yeah, let's briefly go through each stage. But before I jump into it, I want to highlight that it's really important to be focused on some specific objective as you are in the process of getting the product ready in some specific stage. So yeah, let's go one by one. Concept, I believe it's all clear. We've just went briefly. Prototype, it's about testing something of high risk in your project for initial validation that this project might make sense. And it might make sense to spend lots of resources in development of this project later on. And it's extremely important to set resource and time limitations for the prototyping. First playable, it's about validation of the core gameplay. Vertical slice, checking gameplay plus meta combination. Test market release, gathering initial retention metrics, and focusing on players' initial reaction and feedback. Soft launch, test long-term retention and monetization. And of course, global launch is about be sure to get ready for rolling out globally and getting ready for players from all over the world of different languages, different locations to join your game and have fun. Next one, please. So yeah, let's start into the case of our portfolio, which is Rush Royale. It's a hit product in our portfolio, which has grown rapidly. It's tower defense game with competitive PvP gameplay and deep progression system. We've launched the game in late 2020, and the game is growing rapidly by audience and revenue performance since then. So yeah, I'll be elaborating how we actually came up with this Rush Royale opportunity from scratch. Next slide, please. Cool. So yeah, getting back to initial, I would say, range of options that I've highlighted at the very beginning, we've chosen the approach of adding the right thing. As a result of market audience research that we've done based on the guidelines, actually, that Vlad has mentioned at the very beginning, in the first section of our presentation. Moving on to the next slide, please. So yeah, we've started with researching tower defense and strategy genre. And eventually, we came across random dice game. We analyzed strengths and weaknesses of this game and highlighted that in terms of strengths, random dice has fun competitive PvP core gameplay mechanic, deep and solid meta game that can be monetized on considering a free-to-play game as a service business model. And of course, initial success in terms of monetary performance. However, we've identified a range of areas of improvement. The key of them is being really abstract setting and art style, which is rather specific and I would say like personally more relevant to Asian markets. And as one of the data points to prove this, we can see that more than 40% of revenue as of product's lifetime is coming from Korea specifically. Next, please. So yeah, we actually checked lots of hypotheses about this opportunity, went through the process that Vlad has mentioned about the market research side of things, identified the market size and value, and well, came to the conclusion that this is a solid opportunity. Considered and tested art styles and set for future product. And in the end, identified that high fantasy cartoonish setup unlocks great potential for new products on the market globally, and most importantly, in the Western markets. And yeah, next slide. So that's how we came up with inspiration for Rush Royale. And now, yeah, it's delivering solidly on the market and within our portfolio. But beyond this Rush Royale creation idea or inspiration, I would say it's first and foremost, of course, about blood, sweat, and tears, as always. Next slide, please. Cool. Yeah, so let's sum up the key takeaways about my section. So first and foremost, it's really important to know your team, its strengths and weaknesses. And well, yeah, being sure to build up on your initial experience or previous portfolio that you as a team have to de-risk and to deliver the product that might become a business faster in the course of the timeline. In terms of various approaches to finding new opportunities, consider improving existing products and adding that right thing that can, well, actually make a groundbreaking difference compared to initial product that you are having as an inspiration. Combine different features to find new gameplay that might be relevant to the target audience, or create something completely unique for the audience that is out there on the market, hungry for new exciting gaming experiences. Comprehensive concepts, the next point. It's about design, production, and marketing angles. Be sure to consider them. The next important point that I really wanted to highlight is that prototype is not only about testing gameplay on some gray boxes. It might be completely various things, starting from art style to tech side of things to anything else. It's about the riskiest part of the future product. And it's about hypotheses that you set in advance and test as a result in the process of prototyping, given really specific time and resource boundaries. And last but not least, be sure to create at least initial roadmap that will become a guiding lights for you as you move forward. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Happy to answer all your questions at the second part of our AMA session. Cool, and then yeah, passing the microphone to Christina.
Thank you very much, Nikita. And again, very happy to be here. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to cover a topic of measuring and monitoring games KPIs. So I'm leading the growth consulting team at Google Play, and what our team does is we look into very different game genre trends in performance, insights that we can pull based on user behavior that signals high-performing, medium or low-performing titles. And what we typically do is sort of consolidate most of the learnings to then share them back to the developer community. And hopefully in the next few slides, the way we look at games KPIs, how we measure games and individual titles' performance and benchmark them against each other, hopefully will give you some insights of what kind of metrics to set up when you are developing and building your first game, how to measure and track them, what is important, what is secondary, and hopefully getting a few insights from the short session. So next slide, please. In summary, what I will be covering is firstly, what are KPIs, why they are needed, then giving an overview of core engagement and economy KPIs that we typically use to analyze trends and generate insights. And then finally, I'm happy to also share some main game genre performance indicators. So to give you a sense of what kind of performance to expect from your title, both in engagement and monetization areas. Next slide, please. And we can move on again. So firstly, giving an overview of the KPIs that we use at Google Play. How we divide KPIs is into core, into engagement, and finally into economic KPIs. We typically look at them in this order. So core KPIs giving a high-level overview of games performance, engagement KPIs diving into how the game retains and engages the players, and finally how the developer has been able to apply a monetization layer on top of the core game loop. So in the next slide, I like a few more details what each of these KPIs actually mean and where they are useful. So core KPIs, what are they? They are typically sort of industry standard. They are game agnostic. They are usable for any game genre, any game title, and it's a set of standard KPIs that are always monitoring. These are quite useful for the entire studio, for the full team, from like general managers to analysts to producers, and they normally give a very good overview of how the business is performing. Are things going well, or are there any problems that the game team should be tackling? And the core KPIs also indicate where the opportunities are. So they are very common to be used to compare different titles, to compare different genres, and then see whether your title is either lagging behind or actually performing extremely well. Next slide. The second group of KPIs are related to engagement. And these KPIs are game specific, and they are based on actions that occur in your game and that are linked to your core game loop. The engagement KPIs help you to understand the genre performance, and they help you to understand why the core KPIs move in certain directions. So they are very useful again for people actually like working hands-on on the game title, like producers, PMs, designers, analysts, even live op managers, etc. And obviously, if you have a very small team with few team members, it's basically everybody who should be interested in the engagement KPIs. So the using and tracking engagement KPIs can help you to understand what kind of changes you need to make, and what are some of the causes of certain changes, either in your top level metrics, and they help you to kind of zoom in what kind of impact certain changes either in your core game loop or in your visual design are happening, and what's the effect of making changes and iterating the in-game experience. And they help to monitor like what's the impact of any kind of in-game updates, etc. So extremely helpful to keep a track on how your kind of game is evolving. And finally, on the next slide, economy KPIs, which is a summary and a group of KPIs that help you to understand how your game performs financially. These are typically game-specific asset and economy flows that the KPIs track. They are based on interactions with the core game loop, or some non-game play inflows if you have them. And these economy KPIs are much more specific to the teams working on different features. So people who should be tracking the economy KPIs, again, are like PMs, designers, any revenue feature-driven people, UA managers, etc., to understand how people are engaging with your in-game features, and what drives them to then actually make purchases in your game title. Again, the economy KPIs help you to understand why your top line revenue is either increasing, flat, or in decline, if that might happen. And economy KPIs also help you to understand what is the impact of certain design changes, or what's the impact of rolling out certain new features or changes in functionality. And also they are quite important for UA sort of teams or people working in user acquisition as well, because they help you to understand like what is the trajectory of monetizing your new users, and how lean or aggressive you can be with your business and monetization strategy in general. So these groups of KPIs are typically the ones that we use to review and analyze titles and genres. In the next slide, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into each of the KPI types and give you some examples from game genres to help you understand how we build the metrics on the Google Play side, and hopefully give you some ideas as well what kind of KPIs to track internally. So first, the core KPIs. As mentioned, these are extremely useful top-line KPIs to understand how your game as a whole is performing. So here on this slide, we have an example of a core KPI tree that is focused on revenue. So the way you would read this diagram is that every metric has a parent. So if two metrics have the same parent, you multiply them together and then get the parent value. So for example, DAU times ARPDAU gives you the daily revenue. The only time you would not multiply is when the boxes are dotted. So in those cases, you would just sum them. So for example, daily conversion is the sum of new buyer conversion and repeat buyer conversion. Now, the way to read this diagram and how it's structured is basically it's aiming to understand three things. So from starting from the left and moving to the right. Firstly, the first thing that this kind of KPI tree should show you is how the game developer is topping off the funnel in terms of getting new installs. So as you can see, we are typically looking at the proportion of organic installs, and then how much of the user base depends on paid UA campaigns. Then second branch, which is under the returning users, this indicates how well the game is retaining those installers that you have acquired. This section is specifically also linked to the game engagement because it does track the retention. So how many, what's the percentage of your user base that is actually coming back on a certain day, week, or month. And then also how large is the user base that does that, and what is the overall impact on your daily active user base. And then thirdly, the branches with blue background indicate how well the game monetizes. So how we divide monetization KPIs is into primary and secondary. Primary monetization KPIs typically indicate how well you are monetizing your entire user base. So what is the percentage of users you're able to convert into buyers? And then what percentage of your buyers actually come back and make more than one purchase. So basically it indicates what percentage and how effectively you are able to work with your total user base and monetize them. The secondary monetization metrics, which includes average transaction value and transaction per buyer, indicates how efficiently you are actually generating revenue from your buyers. So whether you're able to maximize the amount of money people are willing to spend in your game, and also whether the purchasing behavior for a buyer is becoming a pattern, or whether it's just one-off case because of some campaign, and it does not have a recurring tendency. It is a very good signal to understand whether you have a compelling value proposition in your game and features and assets that drive transactions and drive average buyer revenue. So what we always do is look at both, and the combination of the primary and secondary monetization KPIs gives a signal of and the result of how good or how much ARPDAU you're able to generate. Now on the next slide, a very quick example of a similar revenue-focused KPI tree, but it includes ads revenue. So many game genres obviously also monetize users within in-app ads. And here you can see we've just added a branch for ads revenue based on ARPDAU. And it very often, the key metrics we look at is what's the number of impressions per daily active user, and what's the amount of revenue per impressions, and how effectively the ads are able to monetize the user base, who very likely is not going to make any in-app purchases or make any sort of direct transactions or spend in your title. So this should hopefully give an idea of what kind of monetization related KPIs to always track as your core metrics, and the way we look at metrics is always in a bigger picture rather than just like a single KPI that might not tell the true story. So it's always a good idea to kind of set up your kind of core KPIs and look them always together, because a change in one metric or one KPI is not necessarily bad news or good news. You always have to look at how it relates to other KPIs that you're tracking as well. Next slide. The final thing to think about regarding core KPIs is also what kind of sort of depth and the level of depth you want to get into to understand your users and your business performance and game performance. And very often it's really helpful if you're able to sort of slice and dice your like every metric based on platform. So are your players on Android or iOS or some other platform? Geo and country is always a very useful sort of dimension to track and use, because both engagement and economy behaviors can vary from country to country and from sort of developed and developing economies. And then also, if you have the capacity, also set up attributes and dimensions that help you to track particular player segments. And because they can perform and behave quite differently. So looking at either spending behaviors or playing pattern behaviors or some kind of progression data and segmenting users based on that. Sometimes it's also useful to look at or use dimensions and filters for looking at cohort-based sort of KPIs, just to see how over time the metrics and KPIs are changing. So it's again good to keep in mind that it's when you're ready and start building your analytics and basic tracking to think through what kind of filtering and dimensions you'd like to have to be able to understand the player behavior and the trends in more detail. So now moving on, next slide, and we can click through like 2 slides more, engagement KPIs, and what they are and why they are important. So next slide, engagement KPIs are extremely useful to understand drivers for core KPIs. They are most linked to your player lifetime value, how it changes, what are the levers to influence lifetime value, and some of the key questions to ask around engagement KPIs is like, what kind of actions are important for core game loop? What are the key drivers that make players to return to your game? What kind of actions drive higher opportunity for monetization? So what kind of assets to give out for free versus sell as IAPs? And what are some of the key actions that deplete the user's in-game balance? The next slide, as from play perspective, what we can look at in terms of engagement KPIs is how, like, what is the top level stats around how much time users are spending on playing a title, and we can analyze whether it's driven by just very long sessions or whether it's driven by very frequent sessions. It depends on genre, so so it always gives us a good baseline to compare one title to another. And then we also look at what is the stickiness of a title. So DAU over MAU is a good indicator of what percentage of the daily actives are coming back in a month. And whether the game is really like engaging and retains users versus actually churns quite a lot. So these are the metrics that we can see and use in our benchmarking. However, on the next slide, as a developer, you actually want to sort of dive a little bit deeper and really understand what is going on inside your game based the in-game events. And here is a very quick example of engagement KPIs that are based on in-game events. And I've used the casual match 3 core game loop here to kind of explain why it's useful to kind of track and have these metrics in place. So in this match 3 example, obviously the key actions you want to have an understanding of is playing a level, and then whether a player wins or loses a level unlocks the next level and make some progress. So on the next slide, you can see how a typical sort of engagement tracking KPI tree could look like. And here you can see that it's important for a match 3 type of a game to think about why it's useful to get an understanding of users playing a level and then progressing, so winning or losing. So if users are playing a new level, they are trying to obviously progress in a game. But if they are replaying a level multiple times because either it's too difficult or there are some other obstacles, this is a very useful signal for you as a developer that some of these players are very likely to churn because their progress is limited, and they might get demotivated to actually spend more time in your title. And when you track and measure these kind of events-based KPIs, you get the signal whether the game is too easy or the game is too difficult, and whether most of your users progress really fast or whether most of your users actually drop off because of some issues. And then like what is the sweet spot of how many level attempts players need to progress for those who end up progressing, and how many level attempts actually turn the people off from playing your game onwards. Now on the next slide, sort of key things to remember here is that the key engagement metrics you want to track are obviously level win rates in this match 3 examples. And then how many attempts it takes for a player to win, and then obviously the critical KPI of what is the player churn by level, so how far typically players are able to progress, and how much attention or testing you need to do to make sure that you are able to keep any sort of good enough proportion of your players actually retained in the game. So why all this is important? The engagement and retention of your players is the key thing that we always recommend developers to focus on. When you're building a new game, you do want to sort of keep track of these metrics and these KPIs as the first thing, and not even really worry about the monetization and the economy KPIs that much, because if your game is not engaging and your game churns a lot of players, no matter how good your in-game economy is, you're not going to perform well because you have not really cracked the core game loop, and you have something broken in the title. And normally engagement has a very high correlation with your revenue. So games with very high engagement metrics obviously are very successful business-wise as well, and vice versa. Games that just don't engage, don't get any playtime from players, actually really struggle to monetize them with any monetization and business models. So very quick example in the next couple of slides, how engagement can drive your in-game and revenue. So next slide, and we can actually move on 2 slides if possible. So how are you optimizing your user engagement? So we're going to look here at the weekly engagement of all users, and what in a 7-day period. And it's interesting to see what kind of future engagement you can sort of how a future engagement can impact your in-game revenue, and how it actually affects your monetization in the title. So looking at how many average unique days players are engaged with in an average week or average 7-day period, and how it affects the player spend in the same period. So on the next slide, we took 2 games as examples and looked at the trends for those titles, and we can see that for both games, users with high on the left side of the diagram. So users with higher engagement, obviously for both titles, drive stronger future monetization and engagement. So on the left, showing how the relationship between prior week engagement and following week engagement looked like, and we can see that a user that was active 5 days of the last 7 days averages 4 days of activity in the next 7 days. And then on the right side of the diagram, you can see that a user for game 1 in the yellow line, a user that logs in every day and spends ends up spending almost 2 times more than users who log in 6 out of 7 days in both of these examples. But also, like, depending on how your in-game engagement works, you can really drive very different slopes for your monetization curves as well. So the more you're able to engage your player, the higher chances are you're able to generate more revenue from this active player as well. So there's definitely correlation, and this is the reason why we always recommend to focus on improving and fixing your engagement first, and then worrying about your monetization and in-game spend. And then finally, the last group of KPIs on next slide, and we can click through to the next one as well, is economy KPIs. And again, what you want to do as a developer is to track the player asset wallet and then understand how it links to engagement and economy and revenue. And generally, what you do want to track is how do your asset inflows and outflows look like, and how it affects the wallet balance. So if the concept is new, I would definitely recommend to Google. We have quite a lot of material about player wallets and how to kind of set it up and track that online in our Google Play resources. But on the next slide, you can see how again you can turn tracking the player asset wallet inflows and outflows into these KPI trees that then signal where you're either underperforming or overperforming. Are you giving away too many free assets, or have you put too many assets behind the paywall? Do you have assets that actually players don't really consume or consume quick enough, versus maybe you have some assets that are in very high demand and players kind of go through them very quickly, therefore indicating opportunities that you might want to make them more scarce or actually put some of them behind in-app purchase paywall. So again, a very good idea is, if possible, and if you have the resources, to think about how to track these in-game events that affect your in-game wallet and trends there. And then moving on, next final 3 slides. I'm sure you're also interested to kind of get a sense of then how do these games then perform. And what we did is, firstly, here are some examples based on sort of top game titles on Google Play Store and based on US players, because US is a big market for many. And here's just a comparison of what kind of engagement performance to expect from casual, like typical casual title, typical mid-core and hardcore title. And you can see that they are slightly different. So obviously casual title sessions are shorter. It's probably easier to retain a higher percentage of users, and they tend to be a bit more sticky. Mid-core, hardcore titles obviously have much longer sessions, and they get a lot more time out of the user, but also it's more challenging to get a higher percentage of users to play your game. On the next slide, regarding monetization, also the differences are quite visible. So if we can move on to the next slide, we can see that like casual titles generally, the average revenue per paying user is a lot lower than mid-core, hardcore games. The transaction value, the kind of what people are paying for their purchases, also significantly different between casual and more mid and hardcore titles, and also the percentage of players that these game developers are able to convert into buyers. Obviously, because mid and hardcore titles require much heavier investment in terms of player time and engagement, they tend to have higher conversion rates. But like casual genre titles in the last few years have actually like becoming pretty successful in their monetization strategies as well. So hopefully this gives you an insight of like how the media and performance looks like for a lot of the titles out there based on Android user base, and gives like a good benchmark what to aim for when you're ready to launch your next game. So wrapping up with the takeaways, final slide, and then I think the floor is open for questions and answers. So at the main takeaway points, definitely try to set up, even if they're just very basic, like have the basic KPIs set up and sort of pay attention to the different types of KPIs that you want to track and keep an eye on. So from sort of core KPIs that are very high level, indicate top line performance, to engagement and economy ones, the more sophisticated your game becomes. It's very good to understand which specific KPI has the highest impact on your overall performance, and always prioritize improving that. And then anytime you make a change in your title, if you have the tracking and measuring in place, you can always see what's the impact of any change. Also, it's good to know how good looks like. So please use any kind of external resources to get a sense of what kind of performance level to expect. Do not worry if you are in a pre-launch, early launch, or beta launch phase. The numbers are going to change significantly the more you iterate and improve your title. But again, having KPIs in place to measure and track helps you to assess very like individually as well, whether you're progressing, whether your changes are contributing to positive impact, or whether you kind of need to dig deeper and understand what is going on in order to firstly, obviously, keep your players engaged, and then hopefully at some point also sort of turn it into a very successful business. So thank you very much. I know we are way sort of slightly over time, and we have a lot of questions to cover. So giving the mic back to Anton.
All right. Thank you so much, Christina. And thank you to the boys. And I should say, wow, just wow. I mean, so much amazing info, so much advice. Right, guys? I mean,
it's actually what I started with the today's session about, that it's not only a monetization, it's actually a really cool educative content that we're sharing. We're sharing lots of cool insight, and we got so many people who are actually writing to us in our chats, saying something like, "Oh, it's just like in my work." You know, but still...
I can already say that as a media guy, I've heard a lot of interesting stuff that could be useful for me, and I'm not a game developer. That's how good the presentations was.
Yeah. Right. Save your questions for the later, guys, because we have lots of them, and I believe we're gonna start right over. So the first one is, what market research tools / vendors do you use for your analysis, besides, of course, Sensor Tower? So I believe Vlad wants to answer that.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, as you saw, we use Sensor Tower a lot. At least I do. But let's say the answer will be very specific. It depends on what kind of information you wanna get from such research tools. For example, you use it for an ACO, and it could be also an ASO desk, for example, creatives, and probably the easiest and free to use way, it's Facebook ads library. And if we're talking about an overview of all games, for example, it probably then App Magic, Sensor Tower, App Annie, which were mentioned earlier. These are like the services which I used, and probably this is something that I can recommend. So I'm not very sure about other services, but this is just because I never used. Probably you'll find something, and it will be as good as my examples as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So if anyone else wants to also answer the question, please. That's totally okay, and we have time. Do not worry about that. Yeah. So this is how it's gonna go. So first, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell some questions from Zoom, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Zaftracast guys, so because we have lots of questions there. All right, the second one is from Angela. Greetings. I would like to know what you think would be the best way to monetize turn-based strategies on mobile without breaking the balance, of course. And before any of the speakers wants to answer that, I should mention that do not miss the next AMA session. I'm going to announce that again later, but right now, just do not miss that because we're going to talk a lot about monetization. It's going to take place on October 14th. And I'm going to mention that later. And now, please, guys, if you can answer the question. Probably Misha is going to do that.
Yeah, let's do it. Hi, everyone. My name is Mikhail, and I'm also part of the GVC team working as an executive producer here. And that's a very interesting question about turn-based mobile games, because usually from our experience, what we see on the markets, turn-based mobile games are usually monetized as a premium games. But just to think about, if you have an idea, a possibility to create this turn-based mobile game with free-to-play monetization, I think the most interesting direction where you can go to investigate it would be to think about possible unlock of some additional content. Of course, depending on the genre, it could be additional factions, additional heroes, some additional units that could be obtained through a green stuff, or of course, there are some monetization methods. So here would be my advice, and maybe Nikita, Vlad could add something here more.
That's pretty much of it.
Yeah, I think that's a comprehensive answer. Thanks, Michael. I think the other addition is to maybe consider monetization that is based on progression speed up, but it definitely depends on a specific product that you guys are working on.
All right. Thanks, guys. Now, the next one is going to be a tough one, I believe. How do you monetize WebGL games by Vinay? So, Nikita, could you please help us out with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So given the current setup with, I would take it a little bit broader, saying not WebGL, but HTML games overall. They're really dependent on the organic traffic and featuring that is coming from multiple platforms. So when you're getting your HTML game ready for release, be sure to make research about all the key platforms for those kind of games, and try to reach out to platforms to highlight that you're up for this platform and you're a new product on the market. The more interest the product is gathering from the side of the audience, the most likely platforms will be featuring your product in the platform. So obviously the key platform is Facebook. As I mentioned, access to audience and platforms are the most important aspect. In terms of monetization system itself or business model, it's worth considering introducing classic and well-proven free-to-play monetization systems that are applicable to basically all kinds of free-to-play games. And start from there. Beyond this, it's also worth creating your own website and distributing the game through that website, maybe even acquiring paid users and coming up with efficient unit economy.
Okay, this has been extensive. So again, if anyone else wants to join, please do. And if not, we're going to go on. So we have a question from Barry. Where are you sourcing your gameplay data and KPI mining? Is it strictly Google Analytics or Google Play Store? So if anyone wants to answer that.
I'm happy to take that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for our benchmarking analysis and the kind of market and genre insights that we are able to generate, you are correct that we rely on games that are published on Google Play Store. and players who use and who play the games that have been installed from Google Play Store. We have some like very high level views on their player behaviors, what their sort of engagement, retention, and monetization patterns are, etc. So it's based on a sample set of like real player audiences that interact and install games from Google Play.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any free analogs of Facebook audience insights? So Vlad, would you please answer that?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't just saw like the same analogs, like with all the stuff which we got here in Facebook analysis, for example. But I sure hope something is on the market, but it's just another research that we need to do, like all of us, the listeners as well.
I guess Sensor Tower is giving a little bit of free data, but it's not really that comprehensive. It's not really that cool, but still you can use some of it in your research.
Yeah, I thought it's a question about like a free information, like everything is like a communism, all for everyone.
Or maybe Vlad really knows the alternatives, but just, does not want to reveal them. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
yeah, I'm not having all the answers in my pockets.
All right. So yeah, we have lots of questions, and many of them come from our Zavtrakast translation.
Yep.
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
very active audience today. They have a slew of questions. Some of them are very smart. Some of them are, not so not so precise, but still questions are questions. And Timur, maybe you will go
okay.
first.
So the first question was about the free-to-play games. Free-to-play games are under pressure right now from lawmakers.
Nope. Just
what?
see the note.
I don't know. What are you talking about? So are we moving to the next question?
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we're moving to the next.
Okay. So the next question would be, what do you believe helped Genshin Impact to grow that fast? No one saw its huge success coming, and there are no strong competitors with it. I mean, like, I would add to this question, I guess Vlad could be answering, or Nikita could be answering that question. I would add that I don't know, the game came from the developers of the Honkai Impact. It was kind of like a little bit popular, and it was quite really cool, but still no one really would predict this success. So they just, hit the gold nugget. How did they happen? How did they happen to do that?
Yeah, guys, let me just start, and Nikita just I will get some additional information talking about Genshin Impact rank 55 in the building. So it's you guys know it's a AAA game, and it's a free-to-play genre that there are a lot of like content, and there's not that much games, of course, who do the same. Like a AAA made a big boost for it, and you can play it without any donations, for example, and have a lot of fun. Yet there are a strong gacha mechanics for all type of paying users. Next point, probably it's the very first big game with a cross-platform, so you can get drive the auditory from like an Android, iOS, from your PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and etc. And that's also is a great impact on a game industry, like all game media were talking about it. So mostly all the gamers probably knew about this title, or at least were informed. As it was mentioned, there were no any strong competitors. Like Mikhail just created a new niche and got all the auditory from it. Nikita, maybe something I missed.
Yeah, completely agree with your points, Vlad. Actually, I believe that Genshin Impact's success might be predicted crystal clear because of the points that Vlad has mentioned. So let's take a look into key aspects of Genshin Impact. It's full-scale, open-world RPG on mobile. There is which is cross-platform, and which is of AAA quality of production on top of this. So like this is something really unique for the genre. And once the game has hit the market globally, it has gathered lots of interest from the audience worldwide. And also beyond this, the developers have been running alpha servers for about a year prior to global release. And yeah, they've definitely seen some solid performance of early adopters in this game. So yeah, the success is definitely something that might have been predicted with Genshin Impact's case.
I would say, and also add that from creative perspective, Genshin Impact also succeeded from implementing lots of different characters who are really likable, and it's kind of like similar to Overwatch, you know, because they created so many characters who are being likable by Asian audiences, by European audiences, American audiences, lots of fan art, cosplay, and things like that. So I guess the characters were the part of the popularity of the game as well. So moving to the next question, I guess. So
Yes.
the next question from one of our listeners was about how to detect when your concept in your game is kind of like samey. I mean, I guess he's meaning that he's borrowing a little bit from different other games, you know, so it's kind of like similar to the other games. Any good advice about balancing creative borrowing and straight up mindless cloning? So Vlad or any other who's going to be answering this question?
I just hope you are not bored of me. So to be honest, it's pretty easy just to detect such patterns. Like, for example, let's get a time managers niche. So you can go for a stores. You just type something like cooking and see how many games have the same names. They usually even get the same icons, for example, and like they are quite close to one to another, like Cooking Craze, Cooking Madness, Cooking Diary, and so on. And this also comes from the user experience. Like you play these games, you see that your experience is quite the same, and you just understand that like these are almost the same games. Like they have own unique techniques, but probably you just want to try something new. And what I can say about some tips and tricks, I believe. So we got a title inside the My Games, which is Grand Hotel Mania, and it's Time Manager as well. But this studio made their game not around the restaurant thematics, but about the hotels. And this decision made a huge auditory boost. So analyze your, just as an advice, analyze your competitors. Always think about what can you do beside the mainstream, the main settings that everyone got already, and separate the game from all others. And I just believe every game developer wanna do a unique product, but not just copy everything that already lives in the market.
Okay, I also wanted to ask Christina, because she added some notes about that. That's from your perspective, who's actually looking over lots of different game developers, lots of different games. Can you maybe suggest something?
Yes, so what we are seeing, interestingly, is, and especially in sort of among casual game developers, is experimentation with hybrid genres. So taking, let's say, a pretty standard, for example, a match 3 game idea, maybe coming up with some creatively different visuals, and then matching it with some kind of PvP or like very heavily social experience as well, and ending with like fairly successful outcomes. So and we are seeing like quite a bit of this kind of hybrid thinking going on among game developers, that okay, what is the current genre that we know extremely well in portfolio, we have multiple titles, and then take maybe some other genre that is independently successful, and like merging these other genre sort of core sort of game loops and engagement drivers on top of the previous genre. So this is something that has become quite an interesting trend, and obviously we are looking into how to even analyze and monitor such games, because the sort of players' experience is like, you can't really bucket it into one single genre, and you have to think about a bit broader. But this could be like a very interesting strategy, how to not just clone, but actually add something interesting from other genres that could appeal to your player audience.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to sound from my side, I completely agree with you, Christina. And in the end, this question is basically narrowed down to the audience and audience interest in this game. And the question to the developer team is, what would be that unique selling proposition from the side of the product, given high competition on the market? What would be that really interesting aspect, or the aspect that is different from the player's perspective, that is like exciting enough to gather players and audience attention from competitors?
Okay,
Mhm.
so I guess the next question would be that from one of our listeners, is that I have a neat little game prototype with positive feedback, but I guess it won't fit into the current market for some reason. What should I do? Try premium? So,
Yeah,
Misha?
well, here I want to jump in to discuss a bit about it, because when you have really a good prototype which is well understood by your audience, it's always good. But here I don't think we can to try premium, because with premium monetization you really make your audience very narrow. And there could be a lot of other ways to try your monetization to make it not hard for your audience, especially if it's value the title. And here again, as Anton mentioned, we will have this third MAA session for game monetization, and we covered more about these questions. But here we could easily advise you to try in-game advertising as a main monetization way. So you won't have in-apps, but you will have this looking through advertising video and give your value from this one. It could be a good example, and there are some good examples of the market, how it's possible to create it.
So game ads instead of premium, right?
Yeah.
And the ads
It's-
won't ruin your monetization and balance in the game.
Yeah, it's actually about what is the current challenge in terms of the market. Why does the prototype is not relevant with the current market status? If it's about the niche potential of the game, and let's say the prototype is gathering really nice feedback, but from the very niche audience, then the best advice would be to pivot somewhere else to address wider audience on the market, and be successful as a business with this product. In case it's the challenge with monetization system, then Michael's comment is super valid.
Thank you. The next question is, most of this live session is about mobile, but what about PCs and consoles? If I want to understand my KPIs and research my concept, what will change with the platforms? Will KPIs be different? Should I look at some other performance metrics? So if I'm not Yep.
Sure, yeah, let's do it, Max. I mean, that's a great question, and this session is mostly about mobile free-to-play, but happy to cover PC and console side of things. So if we're talking about pre-production stage and coming up with exciting concept, then the process and the ideation process and would be roughly the same, because number one objective is to research the market and research the genre as well, and be sure that your product is addressing some global audience out there on the market, because in the end, this is one of the critical factors of future product success from the business standpoint. If we're talking about initial validation in PC premium side of things, then KPIs are different, of course. One of the aspects that are worth mentioning is Steam Early Access, initial feedback of players, number of pre-orders, wish lists, feedbacks feedbacks of the audience, and starting from there.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next question would be that is there any out-of-the-box solution for KPI telemetry that was highlighted in Google's presentation from Christina, I guess. So, or some kind of a service. It's kind of hard to track so many data yourself for a small team. So, do you have some kind of like a go-to solution that you would actually suggest using in your game, or some two services maybe to implement so that the small team could be gathering all the data? It could be premium, not the free service.
I can quickly answer, because I probably don't have a good answer. It's my recommendation is that what we are seeing is quite a lot of game developers actually build these like tracking solutions and event tracking systems in-house for a very small team with very limited resources. I would recommend just to pick like very few key metrics that you are able to kind of track, even if you create some custom events in your game, and if you don't use any platforms like Firebase or similar, it's still like manageable. I would say that at least some basic tracking, even if it's not ideal, is better than no tracking. So don't worry about sort of over engineering this. I don't have a very good answer to like what kind of off-the-shelf even paid solutions are the best. I don't really have an engineering background, but what we can do is definitely sort of look into what most developers have using as off-the-shelf solutions, and then provide a follow-up feedback on that.
Okay, so Vlad or Nikita, do you have some kind of like a go-to solution maybe to suggest for a small team to implement together most of the data that it, could be useful to track the conversions, ARPU, and everything like that?
Nikita, probably, yeah.
Oh, that's a tough question.
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah,
Shows to be a tricky question, by the way. Yes.
It is. Yeah. Well,
I would say
All
something.
right, guys. All right, guys. We're kind of running out of time, so please let us answer.
Yeah,
this
let's
question.
speed up.
Yeah, let's speed up a
bit.
little bit and try to answer these questions maybe afterwards, because we definitely have all the questions.
Okay. So I guess we're moving to the next question. And Anton, I guess it's up to you for now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, guys. So again, as I've said, the time is running out a bit. We're trying to answer a couple of questions, maybe more. So the next one from Zoom is, what are the perspectives of the subscription game monetization? So if Christina maybe wants to answer that.
Yes, mindful of time, quick answer is that we are seeing more and more developers in different genres testing subscriptions, especially in kind of mid-core, hardcore genres. It is like a next step from payment options like battle passes or seasons passes, which are essentially non-recurring subscriptions. So we are seeing it becoming more and more popular, more developers experimenting with that. The key question, what the developers have in mind, is that what is the cannibalization? So how it possibly can have a negative effect on high-value users and their spend. But yes, it's when it kicked off a couple of years ago, very few developers had subscriptions in games. We're now seeing more and more titles having them and developers experimenting with it.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much. So the next one is, will there be a recorded version of this Zoom session? And if so, where can I find it? So yeah, all our MAI sessions will be available starting from the next week on Game Drive campaign page. You can see the link right on your screens. You can also see the QR code. Please use that and do not miss any of the sessions. So have we answered, does Google allow the use of cryptocurrency tokens and NFT in gameplay?
Yes, I answered in a chat, I hope. The
All right.
answer is no.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the next one is, do you have, yeah, all right. This is also answered in this chat. And what mechanics do you think are particularly lacking in romantic visual novels, considering, of course, the current market situation? So any of you guys?
I know. let me try it. So but it's everything about not around the dating, to be honest, that because everyone is compete with who has the better love story. But I would like to say you can try like a different genre, different specific, do a lot of other settings, for example, like the pirate story, the treasure story, and etc. Just because it's like a books. So you're reading a book, and all books on the interactive novels right now, it's like a love stories, but there are a lot of readers who would like to know some more information and play such a games.
I would also add that
Yep.
actually there are lots of cool stuff that you could add with some different mechanics, because Christina actually said that hybrid mechanics, even in the visual novels, could be your key to success, because adding some different mechanics from different other games, even to the visual novel, a romantic visual novel, could be your key to success.
Yeah,
Right.
fully support this point.
Thank you guys. Thank you both. And this is probably the last one for today. So I have a question about the rules. The rules require the game to be available on the store, but should it be released globally, or can I only unlock it for several countries? And do I need to mention them in my application?
That's about MGVC, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you guys help us out here?
Anyone?
Can you guys please rephrase the question? Is it about what would be the best launch strategy? Start with specific geos and then go worldwide?
No,
it's
Nikita,
about
I think
it's about the requirements.
availability of the game. Yeah, it's completely okay for us if game would be launched just on your native territory and just mention this in application. It would be enough for us to understand. So it's not, of course, we don't request you to make a global launch for a game if it's not ready for it.
So soft launch is totally okay.
Yeah, soft launch in 1 or 2 countries is totally okay. Which countries are most convenient for you?
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And this is the last one, and we're going to wrap it up. And please do not worry. We're going to answer all the questions later. And the next MA session, we will not miss those. So the last one for today is, I'm not sure whom should I ask this. Is it crucial for one mobile game to have all features that are planned for it at release date? Or should you start with its core features just to see how many players would it gain, and then think about releasing features like Premium Pass and so on? So Nikita, could you help us out?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Short answer is the faster you put your product in front of your players, the better, because you'll start gathering data and figuring out if this game makes sense and make players excited. And if in case yes, then of course it makes perfect sense to elaborate the product with more features and making a fully fledged product later on, basically using the data that you collect from your early adopters and first players as a guiding light.
All right. Hope this helps. Thank you, Nikita, and thanks to all of you. And this is a wrap up. So again, thank you guys for asking the questions and for viewing us, for watching us today. And thank you to all who participated in today's AMA session. Special thanks, of course, to our speakers who I believe have shared with us lots of amazing insights and things today. And a very special thank you, of course, to our Zavtracast guys who helped us out today with streaming and questions. And apart from them, thank you to 80 Level, who also helped us today with streaming in English. Thank you
for having
guys.
us. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. And finally, before we end our session today, let me please remind you that we have one more session to come on October 14th. So please stay tuned and check the Game Drive website for more details. You have the link, you have the QR code right now on your screens. And also you will receive personal invitations for upcoming sessions right in your mailbox. So that is, of course, if you have already subscribed on the website. So yeah, we care about you, as you can see. And of course, let me remind you that you are a mobile game developer who has your project already published on Google Play and you're looking for support, consulting, or investments, please submit your project on, again, mgvc.com/gamedrive. Well, that's it for today. We hope to see you in our next session. Again, October 14th, AMA number 3, we're going to talk about monetization, as we have said earlier, and product road mapping. So do not miss that. Please make sure you've registered for the session on the website. You will receive an email. And again, thanks to all of you who have been watching us today, to the speakers, to Zavtracast, to 80 Level, to all the colleagues. Have a beautiful rest of the day and please stay healthy. See you guys later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.